Most organizations do not fail because they lack values. They fail because their decision path is broken. Information enters the system, gets filtered, gets rerouted, and sometimes never reaches authority. Meanwhile, people assume the process worked because the meeting happened. If you want to predict outcomes, stop reading the value statement. Start tracing the path a real decision takes. Think of an organization as a decision machine. It takes in information, incentives, authority, roles, constraints, and feedback. Then it outputs choices that affect people outside the room. That output might be a product change, a hiring decision, a policy, a deadline, or a budget cut. The point is, the blast radius is almost always larger than the conversation that produced it. So what reveals the real organization? Not the culture deck, not the mission poster. It is the decision path. What information is allowed to enter? Who interprets it? Who actually has authority? Which incentives shape behavior? And whether feedback changes what happens next time. One practical way to listen for the decision path is to notice who is playing which role. In many rooms, 7 archetypes show up again and again. They are less like job titles and more like recurring functions in the machine. First, there is the decision owner. This is the person who names the decision and accepts the trade-off. That acceptance matters, because a decision without an owner is usually just a preference contest. When you find a decision owner, your best move is to bring options, risks, and criteria. Help them make the trade-off explicit. Do not bury them in infinite analysis, but also do not let them pretend there is no downside. Next, there is the shadow decider. This person influences outcomes without formal ownership. They may be senior, politically connected, or simply trusted. Their driver is control without full exposure. If you rely on the org chart here, you will keep getting surprised. The right response is to map actual authority before you bet on process. Ask yourself, who can veto this? Who can quietly slow it down? Who can redirect resources with a single message? Then you have the reality carrier. This is the person who brings inconvenient facts into the room. Their driver is contact with reality. They are often the ones saying, the metrics do not match customer behavior, or the system cannot handle that load, or the timeline assumes perfect execution. Reality carriers are easy to punish because they create discomfort, yet they are the organization's immune system. The response is to protect the signal and verify evidence. You want their claims checked, not socially suppressed. If the room shoots the messenger, the machine starts hallucinating. Another common figure is the consensus performer. Their driver is smoothness and speed. They may say things like, sounds like we all agree, or we are aligned, right? While key objections remain unspoken. Consensus performance feels efficient, but it creates delayed failure. The response is to ask for explicit objections and unresolved risks. Invite dissent in a bounded way. What are we missing? What would make this a bad idea? What would we need to believe for this to work? Then there is the metric gamer. This archetype optimizes the measured number while degrading the real outcome. Their driver is reward capture. They are not always malicious. Sometimes the system trained them. If you pay for the number, people will chase the number. The response is to inspect second-order effects. Ask what improves when the metric improves, and what might get worse. If a team hits targets while customers churn, you are not winning. You are harvesting a dashboard. You will also meet the escalation blocker. This person keeps risk local until it becomes systemic. Their driver is avoiding exposure. They may downplay severity, postpone decisions, or keep incidents informal. The cost is that small fires become structural damage. The response is to document severity, owner, and escalation criteria, not as a threat, as a safety mechanism. What level of impact triggers escalation? Who is accountable? By when does it need a decision? Finally, there's the ceremonial reviewer. This person runs process rituals that do not change decisions. Their driver is the appearance of legitimacy. The review meeting happens, slides are presented, and nothing can actually be altered. People leave with the feeling of governance, but the machine did not update. The response is simple and sharp. Ask what decision the review can actually alter. If the answer is none, then it is theater. Theater can be soothing, but it is expensive. Once you can see these roles, you can debug the organization like a system. And the debugging starts with a basic reality to authority path, a small decision tree that sounds almost too obvious. Yet most dysfunction is just one broken step repeated at scale. Step 1 is about entry. Did decision-relevant information enter the system? Not did someone know it. but did it enter in a way the organization can act on? If the answer is no, create a documented signal. Write it down, make it concrete. Then route it to the smallest authority that can act. Smallest matters because big escalation is costly and people avoid it. Your goal is action, not drama. If the information did enter, move to step 2. Did it reach someone with decision rights? Many organizations are good at collecting signals and terrible at routing them. The data sits in a tool. The complaint stays in a support queue. The risk is raised in a meeting with no owner. If the information did not reach decision rights, then escalate with evidence. Evidence is what survives politics. Screenshots, numbers, customer quotes, incident timelines, something portable. Step 3 asks, did the owner make trade-offs explicit? A lot of conflict comes from hidden trade-offs. People argue about details when the real disagreement is priorities. Speed versus quality, cost versus resilience, short-term optics versus long-term trust. If trade-offs are not explicit, request criteria, an owner, a deadline, and risk acceptance. That last one is key. Who is accepting which risk? If nobody will say it, the risk will still exist. It just becomes everyone's problem later. Step 4 is about learning. Did feedback change future behavior? This is the difference between a living system and a brittle one. If feedback does not change anything, you should reduce reliance or exit the dependency. That sounds harsh, but it is reality. A machine that does not update will keep producing the same failures. You can compensate for a while. Eventually you pay. When all 4 steps work, you get a functional decision machine. Not a perfect one, not a painless one, but one that can take in reality, apply authority, and improve over time. Now, what are the common failure modes that break this path? 1 is filtered bad news. Organizations often develop membranes that let good news through and block the rest. People learn which stories get rewarded and which ones get them labeled difficult. The recovery move is to protect reality carriers and document evidence. You are building a channel that can carry uncomfortable truth without destroying the person carrying it. Another failure is an authority accountability split. Someone has power, someone else has blame. Decisions get made in the shadows, while responsibility is pushed onto visible operators. The recovery is to name the owner and the decision rights. Put it in writing. Who decides, who is consulted, who is informed. Clarity reduces manipulation. A third failure is incentive contradiction. Leaders announce one goal, and the system rewards another behavior. The poster says quality, but promotions go to speed. The strategy says customer trust, but bonuses go to short-term revenue. The recovery is to compare announced goals with rewarded behavior. Believe the rewards, then either change the incentives or stop expecting different outcomes. A fourth failure is ceremonial feedback. Postmortems happen, retrospectives happen, reviews happen, and nothing changes. The recovery is to tie review to a decision that can change. What will we do differently? Who will do it? By when? And what happens if we do not? Put all of this together and a simple shift happens in how you operate. You start arguing about what the organization says it is. You start observing what the decision machine actually does. You learn to trace inputs, identify owners, surface trade-offs, and demand feedback that updates behavior. Because in the end, organizations do not drift by accident. They drift along their decision paths. If you can see the path, you can predict the output, and sometimes you can change it.